Hey, what's going on, everybody? It is episode 132 of the Audible Farm podcast, and this episode is brought to you by Couchtown Coffee. If you're a coffee drinker, and I know you probably are, why? Because almost everybody drinks coffee. I would urge you all to try Couchtown Coffee. They roast coffee specifically for you in small batches and then ship it to your house, and that is amazing if I do say so myself. I always flip-flop back and forth between the medium roast and the dark roast. I'm not too particular on the kind that he roasts, but I like to try them all out. But I'm always like, I don't know if medium or dark is better. And guess what? Andrew at Couchtown Coffee roasted me a blend last time. What a wonderful person. If you guys are looking for some custom coffee made especially for you, or if you want to give out some cool gifts to some people, I would highly suggest Couchtown Coffee. So hit them up, www.couchtowncoffee.com, find a coffee you like, make an order, and when you do make an order, you can get some coffee shipped directly to your house and save 20%. How do you save 20%? You enter the code word Audible Farm. The code word Audible Farm, when you make a purchase, just say, hey, I heard the ad on Audible Farm and I want to save 20% because I want to try your coffee out. And because Andrew is so awesome and Couchtown Coffee is that good, they'll take 20% off your order just for you. So check them out, www.couchtowncoffee.com. This episode is also brought to you by Broken Strings. Broken Strings for Iowa. They've got a goal of giving one guitar to a student in every single school district in Iowa. That is 367 school districts, one guitar for each school district. And that is such a great deal because what they're looking for is students that might not be able to express themselves the way they want to, or students that might not have a way to get a guitar any other way. Maybe it's financial troubles. Maybe it's just they don't know where to go to get these guitars. And Scott has started a not-for-profit company. That's Scott Kirkhart, musician from Iowa, has started a not-for-profit, and they're looking for donations. They're looking for any sort of attention they might be able to get. So if you want to just support them by liking the page, that's great. If you want to support them by making a monetary donation, they're going to have shirts for sale at their next event. If you're looking for, maybe donating a used instrument, maybe you're looking to donate some money, there's all sorts of good stuff like that you can do. March 27th, they have an event. Look on their Facebook page. There will be a link in the description section. And the event, all of the proceeds are going to the Broken Strings Foundation. It is a not-for-profit. I mean, that's probably my favorite part about this. This isn't done so somebody can make a bunch of money on the side. This is all done so Scott can live this dream that he has to give a guitar to a student in every school district in Iowa. And I think it's beautiful. So if you've got leftover gear you don't necessarily need, as long as it's not super beat up or something like that, go ahead and hit them up. Hit them up if you want to make a monetary donation. Like I said, at the event on March 27th, they're going to have t-shirts for sale. I believe it is a ticketed event, but all the proceeds go directly to Broken Strings Foundation. So Broken Strings is near and dear to my heart. I am not directly involved, but I am very indirectly involved in what's going on there, and I love the cause. So I urge everyone that's a musician to check it out. Even if you're not a musician, I urge you to check it out. It's for a good cause. So thank you very much, Broken Strings. This episode, I'm sitting down with an old classmate I had when I went to college, Mackenzie Schwenke. Mackenzie has been to school a couple different times, and she has a handful of different degrees, and that actually helps her out with what she's doing now and what she loves now, which is graphic design. We discuss how she started getting into art, and some of the things she did when she started getting into art, believe it or not, is culinary stuff, culinary and baking, and I feel like that is something that is undersold as an art in itself. I kind of let out some of my lesser fun stories about not being able to bake very well, and the fact that, we live in the Midwest and people are willing to kind of just gobble down any sort of food they can find, and that's just the way it is. And that's nothing against us here in the Midwest, but that's just the way it is. But we talk about how that ended up, coming back into play when she decided to do graphic design and being a photographer. We talk about the importance of having that kind of a professionalism, whether or not you have a band, whether or not you have like literally anything. It doesn't matter what kind of company you have, restaurant. We even made the joke about having a plumbing supply store. You need this graphic arts. You need good pictures. You need things to look professional in order to have people take you seriously. And it's very serious stuff, and she takes it very serious, but she also has tons of fun doing it. If there's any bands out there looking for graphic design work, you should probably listen to this episode. She's a great person, and she's looking to cut her teeth and get her name out there, and she loves doing what she does. So check it out. I hope you guys enjoy this episode. Mackenzie's an old friend of mine. This was fun to catch up because we haven't seen each other in I guess it's been about a year or so, maybe even 2 years. We haven't really seen each other, but it was kind of nice to sit down and talk with an old college friend. And believe it or not, even though I went to college at an older age, I did make a couple pretty good friends there, and it's pretty awesome to know that these people are going out into the real world doing what they love. And Mackenzie's no different. Like I said, graphic design work, it's amazing work. She's just starting to get everything launched, and it's really fun to see her doing the things she's doing, because I can do some graphic design work, but it's not very good, especially when you start comparing it to people who are actually trained in how to do it, and then you think, oh, yeah, it's worth it to pay somebody to get something done right. So if you're looking to get something done right, if you're looking for album artwork, if you're looking for photos for your business, photos for your band, if you just need a logo for something, hit her up. And if you know a graphic designer, don't be scared to pay them money, because they will make sure that everything looks good. We talk about all sorts of stuff like that in this episode, and it's a great one. We had a fun time sitting down chatting, and we didn't even cover all the topics we wanted to talk about, which means that Mackenzie's just going to have to come back on the podcast another time. So I hope you guys enjoy this one. It's episode 132 with Mackenzie Schwenke. She is a graphic designer.
It's the Audible Farm Podcast with your host, Peter Stockdale.
Today I'm sitting down with Mackenzie Schwenke. Mackenzie, you and I actually met at Iowa Central when I was going back to school there. We met in an accounting department, which, believe it or not, doesn't really you wouldn't think it leads yourself to be musical, I guess. Why would you run into somebody that's like artistic or musical in an accounting degree type deal? But believe it or not, here we are. And I've ran into a couple people that are musical and do accounting stuff in my life, which is kind of mind blowing. There's not many of us, but I feel like the ones that are kind of special or whatever. So
elite group.
But it was one of those things when we met, you were doing accounting, but you already had a couple degrees under your belt, and then the degrees that you had were culinary and baking,
yes.
Which, believe it or not, I mean, that's something we talked about before the podcast, is how there's a lot of art actually involved in doing those kind of things. And that's something that's undersold. Before the podcast, we went out to eat, and nothing against where we went to eat, but it's not like they fancied the dishes up or anything, I mean, they still look nice and whatever, but
but there's like a big difference between going to places that they just add, we'll just put flakes of parsley around there. That's good enough. And then you go to actually good restaurants where people put in a lot of effort into this food. And I love going to places like that and seeing the art behind it. If you go to really fine restaurants like we did when I was in culinary, a lot of them were they were plated so perfectly, and everything had a purpose to it and a place to it. And if somebody that was next to you got the same thing, it looked identical. There's so much art in culinary that people don't realize it and they don't appreciate it, because especially around here, you don't really see that many places that actually put that much time and effort into their food every day. But
yeah, and it's nothing against the Midwest, but in the Midwest, we're kind of just give us a bunch of cheap food and we'll eat it all. And
the more the better. But
yeah. It's buffet style stuff, or I'm gonna go get barbecue and just pile it all on here, and I'm just gonna eat it all down. And nothing against, I'm not throwing barbecue places under the but
sue him. Just kidding.
No, that's one of the other things I'd think is not just the artistry and the presentation of the food, but there's also a lot of art that goes into actually properly balancing the ingredients in the food.
Yeah.
Where I don't know, we went out and got some food at a Mexican place before we did this podcast, and I just slathered it all with salsa. And then while I was eating, I was I put too much salsa on this, but it's not like you can just scrape it off, so you don't want
to because obviously when culinary, we study a lot of the fine dining, we're talking 3 Michelin stars, which is the best of the best. when they rate Michelin stars, the third star is considered like people make trips specifically to eat at this place. And there's some of them because they do like, 30 course meals. Like we're talking like, oh gosh. But each one, some of them, they purposely make it so it's not going to taste good. Which at first I was like, what the heck? Like, why would you do that? Like, you're in culinary, like your point is to, good food, right? Mm-hmm. But the reason that they did it was because they showed you, here's something not good. And like, so you learn to appreciate the actual good food. And like, here's what like good food is supposed to be like. And there's just, oh my gosh, there's some crazy chefs out there. I actually got Chef Thomas Keller. For anybody that's like into food and stuff, Chef Thomas Keller is one of the best in the United States. I got his autograph once, and oh gosh, I was like freaking out. Like for all the culinary people, it was just like, oh my gosh. But like you research a lot about it, like Noma for one of them, like they were ranked the top restaurant in the world for a couple years back to back, which is very rare. And like the amount of process that they went into just finding their food for that one season, like that he would go out into nature and he'd just go find stuff and be like, wonder what we could do with this. And like he just create these amazing things that you would never even thought of. Some of them look like a bird's nest. And that was purposely what he wanted, was like he wanted to bring you back to nature. And that's a lot of what like, the good chefs want to do, is bring you back to like simple ingredients, but here's how we're going to do it in a crazy way. And you get some like that. And then you got some like that are super into the molecular gastronomy, which is like, Grant Achez. And I screwed up that last name. I know it. In Chicago. But one of his crazy things that he was known for is he did an edible balloon. And that was one of the dishes that he came out was just this balloon. And they would set it down and be like, hey, you're supposed to put your lips up to it and suck in the helium and then eat the balloon. Like, and it was just like, who thinks of that? But it was crazy. It was perfect. There's so much art in it and beauty.
Yeah. I mean, that's like we said, it's undersold a lot. I mean, especially like, and I'm just going to admit it here, but like my camera over there is sitting next to a pizza cooker, like a frozen pizza cooker. So it's like, it's not like I'm out there eating fine dining all the time, but like I've been on like cruise ships and things like that where they take a lot of care and time to, build you crazy stuff, mm-hmm. And it's like, I remember getting like a strawberry soup once. And it was just like, who would do this? And then you eat it and you're like, this is amazingly good. And it's when I order stuff, because it's like, even if this is gross, I can throw it away and no one's going to get mad. And I already paid for the meal anyways. So just take a shot, and that's some of that stuff where I think a lot of people don't ever consider, food being an art form. And that's something that I guess I underappreciate too as a Midwesterner mm-hmm. too. Like I said, I eat frozen pizzas and stuff and I'm okay with it. Or like, like a box of mac and cheese here and there. And it's like, man, it's whatever, The other end of that is I don't have kids. So if you have kids, a lot of times they're just like, I'm not eating mac and cheese ever again in my life. I don't want to see a box of, I don't even see anything that's blue and in a box anymore, so.
Oh gosh, I was going to say something.
That's the best part about the podcast is sometimes it just kind of, you just forget what you're saying. And sometimes I interrupt the guest, unfortunately.
Well, like a lot with like food. Oh gosh, what was I going to say?
Well, let me ask you this.
Okay, you asked me.
When you decided to go to school to do culinary stuff, was that like your first choice, or like did you grow up thinking like I want to learn how to make crazy meals and do and mix stuff that people might not think of mixing, or like work on presentation, or
no.
Was it just kind of a thing you chose and you decided you liked it, or
so what? Growing up as a little kid, if you would have asked me when I was like a fifth grader or whatever what I wanted to do, I wanted to be a veterinarian, because I love animals. Mm-hmm. I still do, obviously, since I have a dog that is flooding my news feed. That's all I post about. Sorry. Sorry, everybody that follows me. But I can't exactly quite remember what led me to wanting to do culinary, but I think it was around high school when it was more baking that I wanted to do. And I loved to bake. I used to just make cookies whenever I wanted to, cupcakes whenever I wanted to. It just was like, you know what? Today sounds like a good day to bake. Like, so originally I just wanted to do baking, but then I was like, you know what? The culinary side is going to be really good too. And so that's why I ended up taking culinary too, because you got the knife skills part too, along with everything, which is super handy. And it takes a lot of skill to be able to properly use your knife.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't really know how else to explain it besides that was kind of what led me into culinary, and the passion of the chefs that I worked with definitely helped kind of lead you with the culinary and definitely like burn that passion into you. But yeah, it pretty much just started with baking, wanting to just mess around with baking, and now whenever I'm home, my first thing that comes out of my dad's mouth is, Mackenzie, what are you making for us tonight? I'm like, okay, Dad. Like, I know. I was a chef. Okay.
So let me ask you this then. Do you think there's much of a difference between baking and cooking food? And I'll preface this with something else. I can cook food. I was a meat cutter. I can grill anything. I can cut anything up. I can do lots of crazy stuff like that. But when it comes to like baking something, I am no bueno. Like I just can't do it. I don't know. Somebody told me once that I'm over mixing everything. Like I'll make cookies and they come out flatter than they should be. Because I'm like mixing all of the air out of them or something, you know, or like brownies were another one. My brownies are they're always like super, super thick and they never, I don't know, they're just dense. It's like, I said, it's like I beat all the air out of them. And then when you bake them, they don't rise much. And it's so like, I've never been good at baking food. And I don't know why, especially like dessert type stuff. It's just, I just wreck it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to say like there's a certain science, but like there is in some ways a little bit with baking. I mean, baking is more of, especially when you like have a recipe, it's more of follow the instructions. And, especially with mixing and stuff, certain things that's mixed until it's put together and that's it.
Yeah.
Some things I remember we had like a bread baking class, which was the best class because you ate bread every single class period in that class.
Oh yeah.
But there were certain breads that like you had to get used to knowing the difference between how long to mix bread. And there was a way that you checked it where you grabbed a piece and then you spread it apart until it was like this even like thin layer, and then you looked at it through the light hitting it. And then you saw like how well it stayed together. Is it like staying together? Just to check to see how the gluten is forming. And yeah, just going to reveal all secrets anyways. But yeah, there's culinary. I think from my point of view, culinary is a lot of, here's my ingredients. Now let's see what I'm going to do with it. Like,
I can see that.
There's a lot of times when I'm making stuff and my mom hates it because I don't really measure anything.
Yeah.
I'm just like, put it in there. Oh, taste it. Definitely needs this. Like, I'm just like going at it. And if she likes it, then she goes, okay, now Mackenzie, I need you to write down the recipe. And I'm like, oh no.
Yeah.
Like, I'm guessing about like this much. And yeah, but with baking, yeah, there's a science behind all of it. And like, especially when we first started in those classes, was learning about every component.
Yeah.
And here's why this is important. What does salt do? Like, I don't know. I guess it's two different things. It really is. I don't know.
I like how you said, you know, with baking, it's follow the instructions, and with like culinary and other forms of cooking, it's kind of just, how do you want to put this together? It's your choice. Because like, I will say the only things I can bake that turn out good are things from a box, and I don't want to like actually say that. Sorry, anybody that's listening that's culinarily inclined of any sort, but like a Duncan Hines cake or something. It's just like, put this stuff in it, mix an egg, this much blah blah, mix it, done, make a cake. You know, but like you can't just start like throwing weird stuff in there and expect it to work out, because sometimes it's not going to work out. You know, and
Gosh, yeah.
but like you said, with food, it's kind of like, I mean, you get to molecular gastronomy, it's like, well, we can go nuts with this, and as long as the end product tastes the way you want it to taste, then you won, you know?
Yeah. Well, especially with baking, like especially if you watch like all those baking shows, and they have like, oh, here, you know, we're gonna make this type of cookie, blah 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 blah. There's still a science behind it, because you still have to have the ratio of flour to, you know, sugar to all that stuff, because if something's off, your dough's not gonna, you know, do anything when you bake it. Like, it's just gonna be the worst cookie. So like,
Guilty as charged.
so like, there's a science behind baking. I feel like that's more, a little bit more precise than just culinary. Is just, hey, let's just try something, like, and see what happens, you know? So
I always thought that was funny, though. Like, it's not the first time I've heard baking is just follow the instructions, you know? And it's, I don't know. I guess to me it's not that easy, but I'm also like not necessarily like baking inclined, I guess is just what I just consider. I'm sure if I tried a bunch and learned more about it, I could get better at it. But it's also one of those things where it's like, I've made brownies like 3 or 4 times and they all sucked. So I was just like, I'm never making brownies again, you know, and you just give up.
Then apparently we need to make brownies together.
You need to show me how to do it. So it's pretty crazy that like you started out going with baking and culinary, and you graduated with a degree in that. I remember you telling me, did you intern in Chicago?
Yes, I did for 2 months.
I recall you telling me some interesting stories about that. Do you have any like off the top of your head you remember?
Okay, so to tell you, first I'll tell you where I was at. So the first month I spent in I have a place called Hot Chocolate. There we go. English. And that was with Chef Mindy Siegel. And she's won a lot of James Beard Awards, for anybody that knows what that is. Really good awards.
I'm over here shrugging. I don't know.
Yeah. So it's called Hot Chocolate. So obviously they served hot chocolate.
Okay.
And I worked in the dessert side. Oh gosh, the desserts were so good. Oh, I loved it. And a lot of what I did was like I'd help with preparing it. So we'd get there like 10 o'clock in the morning was when sometimes when I'd get there around there. They would usually be there a little bit earlier than I was, but and we work until it was time for service. And you meet a lot of unique people in the culinary field. And then when service started, that was pretty much where we were just plating. And that was where I just loved it. Some crazy stories. Oh gosh. I'm trying to think of what happened there.
Let me ask you this before you start with that. What kind of food did they serve there? Was it all just dessert style stuff, or was it like, did they have full meals, or was it like our specialty is hot chocolate, but we also have, you know, whatever inside? Or
So they did serve like normal food. But obviously Chef Mindy Siegel, she was well known for her pastries. So that was more of, I feel like, the focus of that place was our dessert side. But their food was really good at the same time. So I'd help out with that side too. When pastry side, we were doing good, and preparations, we were ahead of the game or whatever. And so I'd go help out the chefs on the other side. And so there was one night that accidentally I ended up getting to eat 3 desserts, try 3 desserts at the same night, and it was so good. That was my dinner, and I remember eating that and thinking like, wow, this is such a great life. Like I get to eat these, and like they were delicious. We had one that like specifically we put food dye in the cake that we had made, and her cake was seriously still the best cake I've ever had. And somebody was allergic to food dye, which they knew about it when they ordered it. And we set it down in front of them, and then they just let it sit there. And we're like, okay, what's going on? Like, why aren't you eating it? Is there something wrong with it? So one of our servers went over there, and they're like, hey, is everything okay? And she goes, well, I'm allergic to food dye. And we're like,
oh no,
you didn't think to tell us that? So we took it back, and she was like, and the server was like, she didn't touch it at all. So he was like, you want to eat it? I was like, oh, heck yeah, let's go.
That'd be awesome.
So I ended up devouring 3 desserts, and it was fantastic. The other place I worked at was at the oldest running family bakery in the United States. It's called Benison's Bakery. I actually knew the guy that owns the bakery because his cousin was my shop teacher in high school.
Oh, cool.
And yes, I was in shop, the only girl in shop. But so I went there, and I remember because I'd get there around like 7:00 in the morning, and I prepared myself every time going in there and did not eat breakfast because the first things that I would do, because I was quick at it, was fill macaroons.
Oh my gosh. Don't even get me started.
Oh,
macaroons are very
they're
good.
so good.
Yes.
So that was what I spent like the first hour or two doing, was filling a ton of macaroons. And if one of them, like the shell was broken or whatever, it ended up breaking, whatever, you could either throw it away or you could eat it.
Yes.
And yes, I did eat them because I just, I have like an obsession with macarons. They're so good.
So there's the weird thing. If people don't know, like, you can go get macaroons at a store, but I've been to a couple bakeries that make them, and it's like light years better. Even if the bakery's not world renowned or anything,
Yeah.
it's just like these fresh macaroons beat the pants off of
Yeah.
something you can buy in a store. And if you've never had one, they're like almost crispy but delicate and like kind of, I want to
like
say
soft
yeah, they're
and like-
soft at the same time.
Yeah, it's hard to explain, but they are so good. Oh gosh.
But like you said, like sometimes you can, like, if you're kind of like all thumbs, you might end up like smushing them a little bit or cracking them or
you gotta
denting them.
They're very delicate, and
Yes.
but oh my gosh, they're so worth it. The guy that owned the bakery, he is a master baker, which is, you have to take a test over. Like there's a process in order to get that, and he got it, which is a very good award. Like this guy knows everything there is to know about bread, whatever it might be. Oh gosh, yes. And I loved working there. They were such great people. My favorite person, his name was Hector, and Hector Martinez. Oh my gosh, I love that guy. And he was the hardest worker I've ever seen. But he was so funny. And there was another lady that I was working with that I had pretty much worked side by side sometimes, and she decided to get a macaron tattooed right here. And Hector thought it looked like a hamburger.
I don't know if that's
Oh gosh.
I mean, I guess yes, you can kind of see it, but maybe the tattoo artist needed work. I don't know.
I don't know.
We'll just let it go.
We're just gonna let that one slide. And so he wasn't a huge fan of this girl, and he would walk by every single time, and when he wanted to get her going, and he'd go, "I just don't understand why someone could get a hamburger on their arm." And she would whip her head around. She'd get so mad, and I'd just sit there laugh, and he'd just get this big grin on his face. I'm like, Hector, oh my gosh. And then he'd come up to me and be like, "Mackenzie, you live here, you pay no rent," and then just walk off. And I'm like, Hector, like, you can't just like smooth talk me, then walk away. Like, he was just so funny. Oh gosh, but he was the sweetest guy ever. I ended up getting to work with a machine. For anybody that knows what a CNC router is, it's like that, but in the pastry world. So
Okay. So how would that work?
so let me explain it. So instead of obviously a router, it uses high water pressure, and then you can program it to cut into, like, for instance, like sometimes we used it for brownies, and it made it easier to cut the shapes of the brownies perfectly, the right size. And with it being such high water pressure, you wouldn't have known that that's how it cut.
Yes.
And it was like smooth as butter. Like, this thing was amazing to work with, but never reach your hand in there.
Yeah. I mean,
Disclaimer.
yes. I mean, I've done that. I've done that, like washing cars, when you go buy your own like water pressure, your own water hose, and it's like, don't crank it up too much and put your hand in front of it,
Yeah.
and before you know it, it just pulls all your skin off. And you're
Yeah.
like, holy cow.
Well, with that machine, I got told that, like, they were like, normally we don't let interns mess with this. Just because it's $100,000 some machine, that they had to actually remove a window, like the side of the wall on one side, just to be able to get this machine into their bakery.
Oh, wow.
And they ended up trusting me enough that they're like, we're going to teach you how to use it. And so
Cool.
ever Hector needed it, he'd come up there and he'd come, Mackenzie, I need your help. I'm like, okay, Hector, only for you. And I'd go walk back there and help him. And I loved it. He was, oh gosh, I miss the crap out of that guy. But I loved it there. I mean, it was hard work, and especially if it was in the dead heat of July, and which around the time we were hitting like the hottest temps in that summer, like it was, oh gosh, it was so hot.
And then you're in a bakery.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
that in itself, oh gosh, it was you were sweating all the time. But we had so much fun, and I mean, it was hard work, but it was so much fun. And we'd crank up music, and sometimes we'd be dancing while we're working, which then I'd forget that we had cameras that are video recording us as we're working, and they're putting it on their website. So if anybody wants to check in and see what we're doing, like they can totally see it. I'm like, oh gosh, I forgot.
That's hilarious. So you guys are all out there like boogieing and stuff. Like.
Yeah, something like that. But they have, hands down, the best croissants I've ever had in my entire life. I love their croissants. Oh gosh. They like melted in your mouth. I still will never have a croissant that's just that good.
I think that's another thing too. There's like some foods, like we said with macaroons, croissants would definitely be another one where like if you get a fresh one, you're just like, whoa, this is night and day difference than just going to getting Pillsbury croissants. Don't sue me, Pillsbury, but like.
It's a big difference. I kid you not. If you ever had these croissants, you would be done. You wouldn't be able to have the other ones. Like.
The craziest thing I had once was a chocolate croissant, and it was just like, what? Like, why would I ever want a chocolate croissant? But when you get like a good one, you're like, oh, I get it now. Like this is almost just dessert, you know? Yeah. Like it just flakes apart.
Well, they did a whole bunch like different flavors. So like some of them they would wrap like around chocolate, like sticks that they had, and they would wrap it around there, and they'd wrap it around some like spinach stuff and ham and cheese, basic stuff, but. Yeah, they did it around chocolate, and at first I was like, I mean, yeah, but like,
it almost doesn't seem like they would go together, kind of.
To me, it was just like bread and chocolate in my head when I first. But then you like try it, and it's just like, okay,
I get it.
I get it now.
Yeah. It's a long ways away from pigs in a blanket, like. Not that you guys were or weren't making pigs in a blanket, but, So that's pretty cool. Like, I feel like that's a lot of undersold things when it comes to like the people that are making your baked goods, your cooked goods and things like that. And like we said, it's nothing against your restaurants in whatever your local town is. It's not like those people don't have skill, because believe it or not, it takes skill to cook food in any fashion. I'm sure you've run into it just as much as I have in your life, that there's people that just don't have the ability to cook food. They're just not good at it or whatever. Kind of like me with baking, So like that's one reason I'm never just like, this bakery sucks, because it's like, well, at least it came out normal, and mine doesn't even work. So I'm never gonna like undersell somebody. And there used to be a bakery here in town that would bake stuff, and they would have fried food and things like that, like donuts and things of that nature. And I always just it always just kind of intrigued me. And it's my mom when we were growing up, she'd like bake cookies and do brownies and things like that. And they weren't like bad, but it wasn't anything that was like super great. And then you find out that like she just hasn't done it a lot. And now that she's retired and she makes cookies and stuff, it's like, oh, these are dynamite. It's like, because she has the time to just, I'm bored, I'm just going to make cookies, and then you start to figure out how to do it better, And I always thought that was weird because, when you think about baking cookies and things, you always think of like your grandma or whatever, and then it's like, is this something that's like a lost art? And I think some of it just has to do with taking the time to get good at it too, so.
Yeah, and finding the right recipe.
That's true. I remember seeing a post on Facebook where they were like, they made like 12 different cookies, and then like all of the cookies had slightly different recipes, and they explained we're like, this one looks like this because it has more baking soda than the rest, and this one looks like this because it has more salt in it than the rest, and et cetera, et cetera. And that's, once again, that's something that I wouldn't know hide nor hair about, but you haven't gone to school, you would probably understand it a little bit better than me. So.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So you do that, then you decide that it's maybe not the thing you want to do. Maybe not for like a living, maybe not for life, but it's definitely something you have in your back pocket that you can always come back to. So that's one of the important things I think about.
Yeah.
Going to school, and even if you don't like doing what you went to school for, you can still utilize it later in life. Because we went to school for accounting, and then afterwards you went back to school again, and you're a graphic designer, and you had some photography stuff. And we actually talked a little bit how at the beginning of this, maybe before we started doing the interview, but we talked about how your culinary degree actually came in handy when you were doing photography stuff for the school. And I thought that was a cool story. So let's pop that in here too.
So for our photography department, sometimes we get called into just different businesses that are like, hey, we need pictures. We need updated pictures. Can you come out here? So like we did it for a salon once, like, but this one was a little bit different. It was for Buford's because they're revamping their menu, changing some stuff up.
For people living across the state, Buford's is a steakhouse restaurant kind of place.
Yeah.
And it's not just a steakhouse, but I think they were called Buford's Steakhouse. Was the deal.
And I think that, I don't want to like end up saying the wrong thing, but I think that they're kind of going away, trying to do something a little bit refreshed and new. And
at one point in time, they remodeled the whole place and they were changing it all up. I remember that. So they called you guys in and they were like, we need pictures. What do they need pictures of?
Yeah. And so like this semester, I haven't been able to take a photography class. It just never didn't fit in my schedule. But my teacher, Rochelle, she was like, hey, feel free to stop by, hang out with us, whatever. And I had modeled for them in the past. So sometimes I'd go in there and just, look nice for them. And so this came up and she came up to me. She goes, hey, I think this would be really great for your portfolio. If you came out, bring your camera, we'll take some pictures, put it in your portfolio. I'm like, cool, great. Talked it out, got out of my one class for a little bit and went out there. And at first I was like, yeah, we're going to take some pictures. And then I see a plate of food and I was like, okay, I need to fix this. So I started adjusting some things and then that just turned into, okay, Mackenzie, we have this plate of food. Can you plate it? And so instead of me taking pictures, I pretty much spent the whole time plating and making things look nice. And it was actually a ton of fun for me. That was like my favorite part about the culinary, the baking, was plating because there's so much art in it. It's kind of fun to just, smear stuff on there. And so it was like a ton of fun. I was just sitting there, like they'd bring a plate to me and she's like, so she's like, here's like this fish. What do you think? What do you want to put it on? And I'm like, okay, get me this. And like, what does it normally come with? Oh, it comes with this sauce. Okay, let's just smear it, do something like fun with it. And then I would get called, hey, Mackenzie, can you come look at this plate and like fix it? And I'm like, yeah. So I go over there. And so at one point my teacher just like walked over and she was like, I love you. I'm like, I love me too. Like, thanks. Like, which is kind of funny because it was like nobody else had that culinary experience. And with having that culinary experience, I could be like, yeah, I have some ideas for it. Let's sprinkle some cheese over this part. Let's fix that edge. Let's clean that up, And while like photographers, they are known to like, they're taught like to, hey, try to, fix the scene, make it look nice. But I think with food, it's a little bit different. And I think they were almost scared to touch something because, I mean, you touch a sauce and you put it in the wrong spot, like it's permanently there on the plate,
Yeah. Or you like touch it and it's like, oh, I smeared it all over this thing. And you can't really like wipe salmon off to make it, or like something like that. So
yeah. So I think that was definitely kind of an eye-opening moment for me. I was like, oh, cool. Like my culinary side of this is really going to come in handy with this. Like, and I love getting to incorporate both of them into one central thing. And,
Yeah, I just thought that was like really interesting how the two ended up overlapping and like it wasn't really planned. Maybe Rochelle. I'm thinking that's Rochelle Green, Green Door Photography in Fort Dodge.
Yes.
Yes. Does actually very good work.
Yes,
I knew somebody that interned there for a while. It's if anybody's looking for someone to take pictures, I'd recommend it. So
she's great. I love her.
Yes, she's a very nice person too. So but yeah, it's like one of those things. Maybe she knew that you kind of did some of that and could help out more, but it's also kind of interesting that it's like blind luck that happened like that, and like it definitely wasn't really planned for me to play at all. Like when I got there, I got there a little later than everybody else because I had to go to my first class for just a little bit, check in on our project that we were doing.
And so I showed up and everybody had their stuff all set up. And so pretty much I was going to go around and take pictures from a different perspective, from whatever I found, saw, whatever. And then it just turned into me plating.
Yeah.
Which I was like, it's fine. I didn't get pictures, a ton of pictures, but I was like, it was definitely fun for my creative side it was kind of a break from the everyday normal class schedule to be able to just go out there and have some fun, mess with some food, play with my food.
The other cool thing about that was, like, I guess it depends more like on who is going to be the management and how they do stuff, but like they could see the way you're orienting stuff and be like, we're going to copy this.
Yeah.
And now we're going to have all the food come out like this. Cause now that we have like a better idea of how to do it, or a different way of doing it that might be blah, 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 like, cause you're more trained in it than maybe just some random person that's like, well, let's just throw it down here and take a picture. And it's like, well, if we just did these tiny little things, it could actually be so
these
much
small things that you don't necessarily notice, but it can make a big difference.
Yeah.
I remember getting drilled in my head, you see what you eat with your eyes. Like,
that's true.
If you see something like that was a big thing with plating, is that you can make it look pretty, and people are going to look at it and be like, oh, this looks good.
The best example I would say for that would be like bland colored food. So like if everything's kind of got this white hue to it, it's like, this doesn't look good,
Like, even I still remember in culinary, when you brought out, like, because there's a normal yellow potato, but there are purple potatoes, and bringing those out instead of a normal potato, and the amount of people that were like, oh my gosh. And it's just something so simple that, like, you're in culinary and you're like, okay, let's just, do our stuff. This is cool. And it just amazed people, like blew people's minds. It's just so funny to me.
All right. So we're going to change the gears here, actually, because, we talked a lot about food. I bet we could talk about food the whole podcast.
Probably making everybody hungry.
Hopefully you're not listening to this on the road far ways away from somewhere. And if you are going to stop somewhere to get food, hopefully you're not stopping at a McDonald's, because you'll be let down after all this talk. But but you actually are a graphic designer, and it's not just the photography portion of it. One of the things that kind of blew me away was you will every now and then on your Facebook share pictures of like, I did this thing for one of my classes, and it's like, I just kind of threw this together today. And it's like, how did you throw that together and it looks so good? Because believe it or not, when I first went to Iowa Central, I took graphic design classes. I didn't make it out. I didn't graduate. I took one semester and dropped out. And so I didn't really learn too much. I would be what I would call a novice. A novice is so much better than somebody that doesn't know anything, because people that don't know anything, it's kind of tough when they try to design their own stuff, because Microsoft Paint can only do so much, so.
Oh gosh.
But you also do graphic design work, and it's I don't want to blow your head up here too much, but it looks really nice, and it was one of the reasons that I thought this would be a good reason for you to come on the podcast, because not only do I talk to artists, but this graphic design is just as much an art form as somebody that can doodle or draw something or whatever. And I do a lot of people with music, and musicians are on here, and this isn't anything against musicians, but I see a lot of people who just like steal an image off somewhere on the internet, and then they're just like, I'll just put a block letter thing of my name over top of this and we'll call it good,
Yeah.
I could have done that for Audible Farm, but I paid a graphic designer to make me one, and it looks so much better. Yes, I paid a graphic designer to do it.
Can you add in an applause?
I wish I had a soundboard.
So proud of you.
God goes wild. No, but seriously, I know a lot of people shy away from it because it's just like, I'm not paying this person $50. I'm not paying this person $100. And it's like, do it. It's going to be so worth it, because they can make something for you and then alter it in certain fashions that we wouldn't be able to do, or like we were talking about the difference between like a vector versus just like your simple JPEGs and stuff. And it's like, if you just make a JPEG and it looks okay, have fun trying to blow it up or stretch it out a certain way. Ain't gonna look good.
No.
So when I was doing the stuff, I was like, I want something that kind of looks like this. I want a big one. I want a small one. I want one with a clear background so I can set it on top of something. I want one with a solid background so I can, et cetera, et cetera. And the person that I had do my graphic design work, it was Brent Licata. I did a podcast with him a while back, if you guys want to look for that one. But he helped me out a lot with that. And it was great to have somebody that knew what they were doing. Because like I said, I could have done it, but it would have just been like, here's a dumb picture of something and then some block letters over it, and we'll just call it good. How did you decide to do this? That's something else that kind of blew me away. Was it something that you were like, I like art enough that maybe I'll try and do it with computers? Or were you much of a drawer or?
So I used to draw a little bit, without going into too much detail. It was a lot when I was going through mental health struggles that I was definitely drawing a lot. It was my way of expressing my emotion. But I mean, I drew a little bit. I think honestly, when I was in high school before I decided to take culinary, I did want to go into graphic design. But then I was like, you know what? I don't think I could do it. Like, I just don't think I'd be good at it. 100% that did go through my head.
Yeah.
And, because it's a lot of art and I mean, I drew a little bit, but I never considered myself, an artist.
An artist.
Yeah. And so the more I thought about it, I ended up actually taking digital mass communications at first, which is like a mixture of like graphic design, but it also has to do with a lot of writing and stuff, which I'm not a writer.
Of all the things you have degrees in.
Yeah, that's the one I'm not going to do. I probably should just so I can learn how to,
Well, you never know. You can always go back again,
No. I could just hear my mom yelling, no.
No.
No, graphic design, I can't exactly remember what led me to be like, you know what, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go into graphic design. I definitely got a lot of crap from people about, why are you going back again? Like, shouldn't you just go interns with somebody and see if it's actually what you want to do? And maybe they had the best interest in mind with me, but at some point I was like, you know what? Screw you guys.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this for me. And I fell in love with it. And
100%.
The teacher, Jake Zweibaummer, I will never say it to his face, even though now you're going to have video evidence of this, but he's fantastic.
I'll never say it to his face. Great guy.
Seriously. We go back and forth with each other a lot, but he's a great teacher. Fantastic. And from the very start, when I was in digital mass communications, we had to take a Photoshop class. And so he was a teacher. And I don't know what it was. I don't know if he saw something in me or what it was. Maybe he was just trying to get more people in his program. But he kept trying to persuade me to switch over to graphic design. And after the first semester and taking Photoshop classes, and I was like, you know what? I like this. This is fun. And I decided to switch over. And oh gosh, I love it. It's so much fun. There's something so endless about it, I guess I should say. Like, there's so many possibilities that you can do with it. I mean, you can draw, but you can also just click points.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how to explain it, but it's fun. And a lot of my projects start out with just a simple idea. Like my one that I recently just posted, I had to do a series. It's for our art show that's coming out here in the next month for the semester. And I did a series on mental health because mental health is a huge thing I'm passionate about. And I like to do things that I'm passionate about. And so I did a series. So one of them was about anxiety. The other one was about depression. And what I wanted to capture was, this is what it felt like to me to go through these. And I wanted to get that sense of, the storm that's going on inside of you, the exhaustion with it, all of it combined into it. And looking at them now, I seriously am my favorite pieces just because I have so much heart into it and passion in it. And I feel like if people really look at it, they'll see that. And yeah, you're talking about the difference between a vector image and a normal image. Go to a graphic designer. I can't persuade people enough that it's so important. First of all, you're going back to you wanted different options. Especially with my classes with Jake when he's teaching us, he's always make sure you have different options. Here's what it could look like if you did it on that, whatever it might be. We did some of our projects require us to put it on a t-shirt, put it on some type of merchandise, put it on a poster, put it on a billboard, see what it would look like in different scenarios. And people don't normally think of that. Like,
I mean, I'll stop you right here. I didn't think of that, but like when you think about that, it's like, well, this is what it would look like in a real world application, as opposed to just a picture on your computer or like a snapshot on your phone or like a thing on Facebook or whatever, So,
yeah. And like, okay, this is going to be my little rant of the night for this. Make sure you get it in a vector format. I cannot press this enough. Like, a vector image is so much better. And like the difference, here's the best way I can explain it, is so let's say you have two files. They're the same logo. One's done in Photoshop. One is done in Illustrator. For those of you guys who don't know, that Illustrator is really well known for logos is a big thing that we use it for. So Photoshop is done in pixels pretty much.
yes.
And so you save it as a JPEG. You save this one, as a vector file.
Yeah.
And let's say, they were 2 by 3 inches, both of them. Well, you wanted to use this as a giant poster that you want to put at this big event that you have.
Yeah. You want to stretch it out and put it on some giant like canvas thing that you're going to.
Yeah. So your vector image is based off of points, lines, curves, a way that they come together. You scale that up, it's still going to be the same whether you scale it as big as you want it or as small as you want it. It is still going to look the same. You do that with a JPEG or PNG or, whatever, a pixelized image. And I'll think of like, you take like a normal size image and then you just try to like
stretch
it out, how pixelated it's going to be. And that's what it's going to be like. So a vector image is so important.
Yeah.
And having it professionally done, whether you know it or not, like, our job is to be creative, and we're huge like creative people, and you give us that chance to be creative. It's sometimes one of our favorite things to do is when people can give it's sometimes a headache, but when people come to us and they're like, hey, we need a logo for this, what can you create? Like, I follow like a ton of different graphic designers in different pages and stuff, and I just look. That's half of what I see on my like Instagram, whatever it is, but I'm absorbing all of that, and I'm taking in like pieces. I'm like, I really like the way they did that. Let's change it a little bit and do this.
I like the way the words sat on this. I'm going to borrow that, but I'm going to put it on something else like this that I liked, and then I created this. And if we slam them all together, now I have a piece that I created. Or not me, but you. So.
But we're definitely creative, and like, if you look at some logos and the way that they have hidden things in there that relate to that product that you wouldn't have noticed really, or you wouldn't really have thought of, like,
I'm smiling really hard. And I'll tell you why. If you have any Audible Farm stuff, look at the pick that the pig is holding. The pick is actually, it says 3FB on it for Three Finger Betty, which was the band I was in and still am in. But it's one of those things where, like you said, these people can hide stuff in there and do stuff where you're just like, that's a neat thing I never would have noticed. And bada bing, bada boom. Yeah.
And, we're willing to work with you. If you have an idea, a general concept of what you wanted to have it look like, give it to us, but also be willing to listen to our feedback.
That's another thing that's
a big thing, is like, people sometimes have the idea in their head, and then when they tell a graphic designer, we might look at you or try not to look at you in a like kind of dumbfounded look, because it's just like, that would not look good. Like, we know when things are going to look bad. If you get a good graphic designer, we know when things are going to look bad, and we'll tell you. But you got to be willing to listen to it. And the clients that are willing to listen to it, they're some of the best clients. Is they're willing to listen to your feedback, and we're willing to listen to you. And we put our name on this, so we want it to look good.
Yes.
And so we're going to tell you if it's not going to look good.
Well, another thing you could do would be like, I want it like this, and it's got to be like this. And you're thinking, I can do it like that, but it would look better like this. So what you could do is make the thing that I want, and then be like, I also thought it might look cool if we did it this way. And you can show them that as well. And they're like, oh my gosh, like I would have never thought of that. And so when you put the two side by side for them, they're like, that's insanely cool. I want the one that you made because what I thought of is actually now it doesn't look as good compared to the other one, you know?
Yeah.
And once again, if I wanted to like draw this thingy or whatever and make it, and it's like, it looks cool or whatever, but like, what if I wanted to like make it from landscape to portrait? And then it's like, I got to start all over. I don't know how to do any of this stuff, you know, but like someone like you could be like, well, here's what it looks like landscape. Here's portrait. Here's a big one. Here's one with a red background. Here's one with white lettering. I mean, you could just give me like 20 options, you know, and it's not like it's no work for you, but it's a million times less work for you because you know what you're doing than it would be for me.
And we have like generally we're already probably thinking of ways for you to have different options. Like definitely. So recently for one of my projects that our teacher gave us is to create our own logo, our own brand. And I've been sharing this. I shared it with you, obviously. But a lot of people point out my glasses is a huge part of my identity right now, apparently. The amount of times I get comments about my glasses. And I'm like,
Step aside, Sally Jesse Raphael. That's a reference most people won't know. Maybe, I don't know.
But as soon I'm like, you know what? I had this idea just popped in my head. I was like, let's just put my glasses in my logo. And so I decided, I actually found a picture because I got these at I Buy Direct. So found a picture that was of the glasses of the front, and then like did an outline of it, and then made 3 different copies of it. And since CMYK, for anybody that knows anything about like printing stuff, so you have RGB and then you have CMYK.
Yep.
So CMYK, you use cyan, magenta, and yellow. So I took the 3 different copies, made them each cyan, magenta, yellow, and then placed them together. So when you're looking at them from a distance, they almost look like they have like a gradient or blend on them that kind of makes it, you'll see like it flow through different colors. Because like when you print stuff, that's how they print off the different colors, is the mixtures of the different colors in order to make whatever color you're wanting. But so when I put them together, and depending on which one I bring up to the front, it's going to change the color and the way that it flows together.
Nice.
So
once again, I mean, that's way above my pay grade. It's something I wouldn't think of.
Yeah, but like you can't really see it from when you're just looking at it normally. But if you actually look at it detailing, you'll see different lines of the pink and the blue and the yellow flowing together. And,
that's cool.
And I was like, it just popped in my head. I was like, you know what, I'm going to try it. And ended up falling in love with it. And then I put the Illustrator pin, which to most people, it's going to be known as the calligraphy pin.
Yep.
But that's the pin that we use a lot when we're working in Illustrator. It's a big tool that we use. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to make it look like my glasses are just barely unfinished and put that pin in there. And then,
believe it or not, that's in there so well that the first time I saw it, I was like, oh, these are neat. This is a cool logo. And then the second time I looked, I was like, oh, and I noticed it was in there. And so like, it's not like it's hidden, but it's in there well enough. It's disguised, and it's not like blatantly obvious and like sticking out like a sore thumb. And that's once again, an attribute to a graphic designer being good at art, you know, and like knowing how to blend stuff together.
Oh yeah. It's actually been a ton of fun. It's really weird because sometimes with logos, it takes me a little while to come up with an idea, but, with just having that random thought of, let's just do my glasses, you know, that's part of who I am, you know, and people seem to identify, when they see me, so I was like, you know what? Let's just put it in my logo. Let's change it up. Let's do something fun. And I'm like way ahead with the process of creating my logo, which is really weird. And normally my teacher, because I ask like 1,000 questions to him because I know this is my last semester, so I'm absorbing as much as I can from him. And he was like, I really like what you're doing with this. I was like,
yes.
One.
Yes.
But yeah, no, I'm planning on I got stickers.
Yes.
Which I got to get you one whenever they come in. But
and I'll get you some stickers.
Yes.
Do a sticker trade.
Yes. I love graphic design. I love it so much. It's so much fun.
So let me ask you this. Like if you're creating something and the teacher, or let's say you're taking a consignment from someone, they're like, make me a logo. And that's all they say. Is that more difficult than if somebody has an idea? I mean, like we talked about, if somebody has an idea that's so specific that's like, you know, it won't work, but it still gives you enough of an idea to start something, I would assume, as opposed to somebody that's just like, I'm just throwing something out there. Like, I got a Mexican restaurant, make me a logo. And it's like, oh, okay. Like, where is there like a toughness as to like, I don't know where to start on this one, or if you have like an idea of where you're going with it?
Honestly, well, if somebody doesn't have an idea, they just know that they want it for whatever business that they have or whatever it is that they're going to use it for. I guess for me, I would ask questions about who they are, learn who they are as a person. Like what I would do for myself is different than what I would do for you.
Makes sense.
We both have different personalities. We both have different, lives, I guess. And so if I know the person, I feel like it's easier to tailor it towards them. But I think starting out by asking those questions, simple questions that you wouldn't necessarily think of, but like, hey, what's your favorite color? Like,
yeah,
whether you know it or not, colors are extremely important in your projects too. But definitely tailoring it to the person. And so like, even if you don't have an idea, like, hey, let me ask you some questions. Let me get to know you. Let's just sit down and talk and get to the idea about, hey, what is this logo going to be used for? What's your passion behind it? That's definitely going to play into, I think, how you design that logo. If someone has an idea, I mean, it's nice to have that idea, but if they're so set on it, that can be a little frustrating for a designer and can be a little scary, I guess, too, because people don't necessarily want to appreciate graphic designers or artists, I guess, in general, in the terms of paying for their creativity.
Okay, I would agree with that 100%. So there's so many, and I see it, and I'm not trying to like knock on anybody in the music scene, but I see it a lot in the music scene. Like I said, people, instead of paying somebody $50, will garble something together on their own and be like, this is good enough. And like, when I joined Three Finger Betty, our logo was a black rectangle with the text Three Finger Betty. That's all it said. And it was just like, we need to do something with this. So we paid a guy to do something with it. And he gave us 3 different logos. All of them were pretty different from one another because we gave him like ideas. And they were amazing, you know? And it's one of those things like, he kind of was just like, your band is this, and it's maybe a little bit of this and maybe a little bit of that. So he gave us 3 different things to work with. And then that was the same thing with like working on the artwork for our latest album. It was like, we wanted to look kind of like this, kind of like this, kind of like this. And we gave him a little bit of a good enough direction where to go, but gave him enough free space to put his own stuff in there, So you can see a lot of those things from what we told him to do. And then you can also see what he kind of just took on his own and did it.
Yeah, I promise you, from a graphic designer's standpoint, if you have a bad graphic, we are hardcore judging you. I mean that in the nicest way possible and slightly joking, but honestly, it's we as graphic designers, I will say that like I love it for the fact that I'm a perfectionist, and when it comes to graphic design, it comes in great handy. Whether I am designing like a magazine spread, whatever it might be, we have to be perfectionists. We have to be able to spot something that's misaligned, something that doesn't look right. And trust me, like even going to restaurants and looking at their menus, I've actually looked at one and been like, this needs to be moved here. Like if I had a pen, I would have been like critiquing it because that's just the way my brain is. And it's been pretty much programmed now with being in the classes and stuff like that. But I mean,
I don't think you're alone in that though. I think everybody will judge based on that to an extent. We might not go as deep to be like, well, obviously if you blah blah and put this and angled it a little bit this way, and then we're not doing that much. But like I said with the band things, if you're a band and you just have like a rando logo, like I said with the Three Finger Betty logo, like just white text on black, like nobody's gonna take you seriously. And it's not that like the end game is to make $1 million and be the most famous and look so professional and polished, but it goes a long ways. I mean, we're not going to name any names, but we talked about, I showed you a couple examples or told you about a couple examples beforehand of like logos that I saw that I was like, this isn't very good. And somebody's trying to use this as their logo. And it might not lend itself to what they're trying
Yeah.
to do, you know, or it might not look as professional. And like, believe it or not, even if you are just playing music or whatever, you might need a decent logo.
Yeah.
Like me, I got a podcast, and it's not like I'm Joe Rogan or anything, but it does help to have a nice logo,
Yeah.
believe it or not.
Trust me, people are going to take you more seriously if your logo looks nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I'll go back to the culinary thing. People eat with their eyes. People are going to judge your business by the way the logo looks.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
coming from, because I work for Spin Market here in Fort Dodge, we do digital marketing.
Oh, cool.
So I design websites too for people. And I kid you not, I have a hard time looking at some people's websites.
Me. Mine's Audible Farm's guilty of that. It's not very amazing.
I can help you.
It works. Dude,
Let me help you.
Dude, I went to school for that too and dropped out. But no, I mean that's something too though. Like something's better than nothing. But at the same
Yeah.
time, like somebody asked me to help them make a website, and I was like, I can make you something generic, but I can't make you something good.
And like, especially with today's technology, anybody can have access to, there's so many programs out there where people can design their own websites, but just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Exactly.
And that's a huge thing, especially in working at Spin Market, is that sometimes people don't understand that there's a lot of things that people don't think about that we do. And there's a science behind your websites and the way that you word things, the way that things are placed. There's different programs that, like technology that we have, that we can tell where exactly they're hovering over the most. Where like your SEOs are search engine operators. I don't know. I'm not going to screw up the words. I'm probably screwing it up already. But the words that you use, like keywords, are going to put you on, is going to be the difference between page 1 of Google and page 37.
Or even the difference between page 1 and 3 is like insane, or 1 and 2. There's so many people that will never ever click to page 2 of Google's.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
It's returns. So getting on
mean,
that first page is important.
And especially like, for instance, like if you search, let's just say dental clinics in Fort Dodge, the likelihood of you clicking the last one compared to the first one is it's just, you're pretty much unlikely to get that client.
Yeah.
If you're the last person.
And the last one could be the best one, and because of just how things are set up in algorithms, it might not end up being working in your favor at all, you know?
So whether like the design side of things is extremely important. If things look nice and they look smooth and they look clean and they look professional, oh yeah, you're going to get my business.
Yeah.
Because they look like you take care of your stuff.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff that goes into it.
Man, we actually have covered an hour, and we haven't even crossed all of the things off of the list. I will say this at the end here, and if you're wondering how in the heck do I spell Schwenke, don't worry about it. All the links are in the description section. So I'm going to throw these out here before we get too much farther into here. But if you're looking for examples of what Mackenzie can do for you, she just started an Instagram page and a Facebook page to show like what she can do. If you're on Facebook, it's Schwenke Artistry. And then if you're on Instagram, it's schwenke.artistry. Once again, there's links in the bottom. I'm going to tag her in everything that I post and stuff. So it should be really easy to find. So if you're like, oh, I don't know how to spell it, I don't want to spell it wrong. Because believe it or not, I went to school with her for 3 years and I spelled it wrong. So, but yeah, so it's there. I'm assuming you're taking commissions if people want.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I would love to work with, I love doing creative stuff. So I will always take, new projects, new things to,
Since this is mostly a music podcast, I'm just saying, bands, if you don't have a logo and you need something that looks a little bit better than what you have, I'm not going to judge anyone. And Mackenzie is actually a very nice person. She will not judge anyone. But if you want a logo, she can do something for you.
Yeah.
Maybe you have a buddy that you want to go with instead, but pay a graphic designer to make your stuff look professional.
Yeah.
And if you don't know one, here's a graphic designer. And like I said, it looks good. It's not that you and I went to accounting school together. And it's not that I was like, Mackenzie doesn't know jack about art. But like when you started doing stuff, I was like, holy cow, this is actually really good.
Yeah.
And it's, like I said, it's not meant to be a dig on you at all. But I was just like, wow, this is crazy. You know, like, and so.
I mean, honestly, I had the thoughts about myself. I was just like, when I was creating some stuff and I was like, wow, like, especially looking at where I was last year compared to where I am this year, like some of the stuff I create, I'm just like, I really love this. Like I'm actually proud of myself for this. Like,
That's a good feeling.
yeah. And especially, especially as graphic designers, we put our name on that stuff. And
artists are some of the most critical people about
Yeah.
themselves.
and if we're going to put our name on something, we're going to make sure it's something that we're proud of.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing for me is I want to be proud of the stuff I do. And so if I don't like something, most likely I haven't posted about it first of all, but I'll tell you straight up, like there's some projects that other people might like of mine, but I just don't like it. And might be just because I'm critical of myself, and that perfectionist side does come into tail against that. But yeah, it's
a blessing and a curse to be a perfectionist.
Really
You just got to make sure you don't go too hard on yourself, and I think that's the one thing a lot of us forget. I myself am also a perfectionist. I've talked about it with some of my musician friends. It's one of the things I struggle with because it's like I'm around people who are so good at music. I interview musicians on the podcast and stuff like that, and it's just like, man, I don't know if I'm any good at this. But then you go out and play and you're like, I am good. I'm better than this guy over here that doesn't know anything, and that's like the other thing I think of when I go out to bars and play. It's like, these people hate me. And it's like, they don't know how to play an instrument anymore than the Man of the Moon. They probably think what I'm doing is like wizard work, you know?
Like, especially in classes, which this probably came from my all my years of playing sports in high school, is I'm very competitive. So I'm always, I am comparing myself on, what my classmates have done. How can I top them?
Yes.
And I love some of my that sounded bad. I shouldn't say that way. My classmates are great, but I'm always looking to try to top them because when they graduate, we're competition now.
Yeah.
And I actually will probably be going to my old high school here and talking to some of the people there. And I kid you not, I'm waiting for the question of how are you going to succeed in this career? And the one thing I'm going to say is you got to work hard. And the amount of people in the graphic design that they have potential, but they're not putting in any effort. Like, it starts from your being willing to wake up, get to class on time, show up, be present, and work your butt off to get where you are. I'm always looking to top myself. What is something I missed? I'm always asking my teacher 1,000 questions. Hey, what does this look like? Does this look bad? And I want to hear all that information because I know that as soon as semester is over, he's no longer my teacher. Mm-hmm. And so I take in that information that I can get now so I can just, grow from there. And so I'm always looking to top one of my classmates. And
well, I will have to say this. Hard work is definitely something that you do know a lot about. Some people might turn their nose up at it, but when you're all said and done, you're going to have 5 different degrees. Mm-hmm. And like I said, some people are going to be like, well, you should have just done one thing and stuck with it because that's what I did. And it's like, well, guess what? It's not the 1920s anymore. It's not like you just get a factory job, work 60 years, get a gold watch, and retire. Mm-hmm. You can do whatever you want in this world, and you're doing what you want. And that's one of the things I really appreciate about you is the fact that you worked hard and stuck with it and got your degrees and things. And even though they didn't work out the way they wanted, you picked yourself back up, you tried again, you did a different thing, you followed it all the way through to the end, and you just kept going and never stopped. So that's probably my favorite thing about you, meeting you at Iowa Central. It's not that like you said, it's not like everyone there is, it's a community college. Not everyone's there that wants to be there. That was me 10 or 15 years ago. I went there and didn't want to be there. I was not one of the good students, and then when I went back as an adult, I knew what I wanted to do. And I was one of the good students, and like you said, I realized that I need to learn how to do this stuff or need to take in some of this information in order to apply it to my daily life in some fashion.
That was a big thing is you put in what you're going to get out. If you put in a ton of work, you're going to get a lot of good things coming out of that. And, it's so hard to see people that don't want to put in that effort. And it just blows my mind. And maybe that's the way I was raised, but oh gosh, it blows my mind. And, I did get a lot of crap for coming back for multiple degrees. And the amount of times I got asked, when are you going to finally leave Iowa Central? Sometimes there was days that I was just like, oh my gosh, this is my 6th year. But
We did also talk. You have 5 degrees in 6 years, though.
Yeah. Technically, yeah.
I got 2 in 3 years. So it's nothing to sneeze at. There's some people that got 1 in 3 years, you know? And there's some people that, like me, I went for 2 different semesters and dropped out both times and got 0 degrees. So I went for a whole year and got nothing out of it, you know?
I mean, and the whole time I still worked my butt off. Accounting, I was always good at math in high school.
And accounting is math art, if anybody doesn't know. It's art with math.
Yeah. And I'll just quote my mother on this with the reason why I shouldn't be in accounting. My mom always said, Mackenzie, if you have to be creative in accounting, you probably shouldn't do it.
Ooh, yeah, that's actually the underground term for wrong accounting.
Yes,
is creative accounting.
And I'm like, you're not wrong. But you know, I love the teachers, Doc Don, Nikki. They were great. They're amazing.
Oh man.
We could talk forever about how great they are.
They instilled a lot of very good values in us.
But I think, especially when it came to my internship and I was sitting there and I remember typing in numbers into a computer and thinking, this is not what I'm supposed to do. Like,
I can see that
my life
too,
cannot be all about numbers. And that's me. My sister's an accountant, and oh my gosh, she's amazing at it. So I am not dissing accountants when I say that.
You're just wired differently.
Yeah, I don't think that way. And my parents, when I was like, Mom, I'm going to go into graphic design. Of course, at one point they were like, oh my gosh, another degree. But they were also like, Mackenzie, we knew accounting wasn't for you. We know that you're a creative person. You've always been a creative person. And accounting is not the field for you.
It's not for everyone.
And it's still a great skill. All my degrees, they're going to come in handy at some point. Obviously, the culinary one was coming in handy when I least expected it. But, you know, going into my last semester, if I think about the last, you know, when I was finishing the culinary and finishing the accounting, I was honestly terrified to graduate because I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I'm actually going to have to do this every day. But now coming into my last semester with graphic design, I'm so like,
you're ready for it.
I'm ready and I'm passionate and I'm happy and I love what I get to do. You know, I have so much confidence, and a lot of that I will give credit to Jake. He is such a great teacher. I cannot express that enough.
This isn't just like us plugging Iowa Central, but Iowa Central's got a bunch of really amazing programs.
They really do.
Honestly,
they have great teachers
for no more than it costs to go there.
I'm gonna just drop some names of some really great teachers. Jennifer Dutcher has such an amount of joy. If you've been in her classes, you will understand she is fantastic as a teacher. Rochelle Green, she's so fantastic. Jake Zweibomber, so fantastic. Like, those are like my top 3, especially with graphic design. Obviously, I have to be in those. But they have such a passion and they show it. And like, the one thing I loved was when I talked to Jennifer Dutcher and she was like, this doesn't feel like a job to me because I love what I get to do. And like, in my head, I was like, yes, like that's the way I feel for graphic design, is like, it doesn't feel like a job when I get to design something. It's fun. Like, I get to create something, and it's just so much passion into it. It's so much fun. And I mean, sure, there's days where I'm just like, I just don't want to do this. But it's fun. It's stress relieving sometimes.
If you love doing what you do, you never work a day in your life. And that is like the actual embodiment of it. I also think some of those sayings when you're growing up, you're like, this is corny. And then you get a little bit older and you're like, oh, I understand this actually. It actually has merit, you know? And so, we still have stuff on the list. I'm not going to keep you here for hours and hours and hours.
I mean, you totally can. I have nothing else to do with my life.
We will save some of this stuff for another podcast just to bring you back.
2 years from now. It took me 2 years to finally do this.
It took you a while to finally do this. But I'm glad we did it now, though, because you're starting to launch your own, I wouldn't say it's your own personal business, but you're starting to do your own graphic design for everyone else. So, once again, if anybody's looking for any graphic design work, Mackenzie's links are down below. Hit her up. She's looking to put her name on the map. She will help you do something and help you fit what you want onto your logo, t-shirt designs, anything. If you got a band, restaurant, I don't care if you have a plumbing supply store, she can help.
Plumbing supply store. Of all things, that's the first thing that popped in your head. Sorry.
I don't know, but seriously.
Yeah, seriously, I'd love to work with new people. I'd love to expand my portfolio. To drop something, I helped. I just started helping the Atlantic movie theater from my hometown, and pretty much doing it for free. I'm not expecting to get paid. I just wanted to do it to help them because, especially with this whole COVID year, they need the help.
Yeah, our movie theater in town folded, and then the city had to buy it and started. I think they're running it as some sort of maybe a non-for-profit. I'm not 100% sure, but
it's important. Seriously, first of all, support your movie theaters. But I love going to movie theaters. I've always loved it. There's just something about it. But
yeah.
So being able to help these people, it's just, it's fun. I love helping people. I do a lot of just small projects to help people. Started running the social media for my church that I do lead worship at and play piano. So
that'll be on the next podcast, by the way.
Yeah.
Because you do have a musical background. We didn't even really dig into it at all. But that's the other thing is you do music stuff. So it's not like you're just foreign to musicians. So if anybody's a musician and you need some graphic artwork done, she can help. She knows, she feels the plight of the musician just as much as we all do. So
even helping with the fact that with all my different degrees, my different areas that I've covered, I have a lot of different experience and I've met a lot of different people. And I feel like I have a very diverse amount of knowledge for only being on this earth for 23 years. But I love to take on new things. I love to try new things. I'm totally willing to work with whoever, as long as you're willing to work with me.
Yeah, absolutely. So if anybody's looking for the stuff, look down below for the links. They'll be there. Click on it. Go through the Instagram. Look at some of the pictures. Go through the Facebook. Look at some of the pictures. There's going to be more stuff added there as you start doing more for other people.
I need to update it more. I'll be honest. Sometimes I'm a little lacking, but I'm trying, guys.
I'm the same way. And trust me, I should post more on Audible Farm. And some weeks I do, and some weeks I don't. And some weeks I feel browbeaten by the internet and have that nobody cares feeling that some people, But this week was one of those weeks where I didn't share almost anything. And the post I shared with the guest, everybody blew up. And they're all saying how great the episode is. And it's amazing. It's nice to have that feedback. So sometimes putting stuff out there is nice for people to be able to comment on it. If you like what she's doing, give her a heart, give her a like, thumbs up, like her page. Just consider it as an option. Yeah. Like I said, it's not
even if it's just logos, even if you need pictures taken, I'm always willing to, practice some more. Photography isn't obviously my main department, but I love getting to practice with it.
An intermediate photographer is better than a beginner with a cell phone. And that's nothing against people with cell phones, because I've done some magic with cell phone cameras. But at the same rate, like I said, if you want band pictures taken, she'll help you out with that too.
Yeah.
Heck, it could be anything. It could be literally anything. Digital.
Maybe maybe we'll have to take pictures with you playing and post them.
Yeah. You know what? I would actually be down for that, because we don't really have any pictures for Three Finger Betty. And as a matter of fact, we had somebody with a cell phone take our last one, and it's not bad, but it's just like, I don't know. I got the whole like,
out.
Like the Tommy boy like chin thing going on or whatever. But
hey, let me out. Let me in it. Let's do it.
I'm in. If anybody else is in, click the links down below. Mackenzie, thank you very much for joining me. I hope you come back and it doesn't take you 2 years to come back on the podcast.
I definitely will be back.
All right.
I promise you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, baby, that was a fun one. That was a really fun episode. Believe it or not, even though I went to school with Mackenzie for the better part of 2 years, and we had a lot of classes together, I still learned a lot about her in this podcast. And, some people might be thinking, why did you have somebody on here as a graphic designer? Well, I've had other artists on here before, and I believe that art is just as an important part of the music scene, of literally everything. Artists are undersold every single day. I don't think artists should ever have to work for free. I don't think they should ever be pressured to work for free. And that goes for graphic designers, photographers, artists, whether or not you're a digital artist or whether or not you're making actual paintings. I don't care if you're a musician, solo musician. I don't care if you do recording art. it does not matter. I think that this should not be something that is taken lightly in the world, because believe it or not, like she said so many times, like, you eat with your eyes when you're looking at food, and it's no different than with businesses. If you walk by a business and it's just got some, schmucky looking artwork, it's just like, man, this could be so much better, and it's not like we're judging anyone, but at the same time, everyone does it. We judge things based on the way they look, and graphic designers help out so much. Like I said in the episode, I didn't make the artwork for Audible Farm. Why? Because I could have made something, but it wouldn't have been anything very fancy. So I wanted to make sure it got done right and it looked good. So I paid a graphic designer to do it. And I've actually convinced a couple of my musician buddies to go about the same route and pay a graphic designer to help make them a logo. And believe it or not, it makes things look so professional. It makes them look so good. As soon as they upload that artwork onto their page, people say, I love this. And that's exactly what these graphic designers are looking for. They're willing to work with you too, and that's another thing that we talked about in this episode. So I gotta say thanks for having Mackenzie come on the podcast and take some time out of her day to sit down and talk with us about this, because it's an important thing. And of all the people I met at Iowa Central, she's one of the good people that I met there. And she never gave up. She kept going back for degrees until she found something she loved, and she seems very happy doing what she's doing. So if you guys are looking for any graphic design work, any photography work, anything like that, hit her up, and that, like I said, make sure you pay your artists to do the work for you. I'm sure Mackenzie will be willing to work with people on price, but you have to pay these people to do the work. It's not free work. If it was, everyone would be able to do it and nobody would ever pay anyone for anything. And I think it's no different than food. I mean, like, even if you go out to eat, you're paying somebody else to do some work for you. And that should be the way it is for everything. Don't ask graphic artists, or any artist for that matter, to work for free. I also don't really believe in musicians working for free exposure. That's not really something. There's definitely a debate to be made about that. It's a common topic in the podcast. And I actually have a few things like that I want to talk to with another guest, maybe at a later date. But I want to bring up those topics at another date. So this one was all positive. I loved it. I love having people like Mackenzie around to spin ideas off of, and to just kind of make sure I'm keeping myself even keel, and it's one of those things. Like I said, I didn't think I would be making friends when I went to Iowa Central as a quote unquote adult, going back there. I went back at a slightly older age than most of my peers that were there, and I actually walked out with a handful of really good buddies, and Mackenzie's one of those. So hit her up if you want some graphic artwork done. And if you guys are curious, what kind of stuff can she do? Well, down below in the description, there's links. There are links to everything that she's done. Like I said, there's a Facebook and an Instagram page. I'm sure she's going to be updating more of those in the upcoming months, maybe even in the upcoming days or weeks. She just recently made a logo, and I said, oh, you got to get stickers for this. So I hooked her up with the sticker company that I use, and she's going to get some stickers done, and I can't wait. So I made a big trade. I gave her some of my stickers, and she's going to have to give me some of hers. And you know what? Maybe I'll even pay her for them, because you know what? You got to pay these people to do this stuff. And, stickers aren't free. Artwork's not free. None of it's free. So if somebody's asking, for graphic design work and they want you to pay, or even an artist or a musician, it's worth it. It is so worth it. And that's something I've kind of leaned into a little bit in the last handful of weeks on the podcast, because I think it's so important. And if you think it's important too, hit her up, ask her to do some graphic artwork for you. If you're looking for just something as simple as a band logo, she can help you work something out that'll fit you, fit your band, fit your style, fit your favorite things in there. I know a lot of graphic designers that are more than willing to work with whoever is commissioning the work to make sure the work gets done the way that they want it to get done. And so that is one thing I really do appreciate about graphic artists, is they take the time. These graphic designers, they take time to make sure what they're doing not only meets their standards, but meets the standards of the client or the customer or whoever's making the commissions for them. So I got to say, once again, I appreciate Mackenzie coming on the podcast, taking time out of her day. If you're interested in her stuff, the links are down below. Thanks, Mackenzie. There's also links down below for all sorts of Audible Farm goodies. There's the shop. There's the Patreon page. There's the website. From the website, you can find everything from the YouTube channel. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's slowly growing and it's slowly getting bigger. So check that out. If you're looking for full video versions, they're available on the Patreon page. It only costs $1 a month. That's $12 a year. That's like a quarter an episode. That's all I'm asking for is 1/4 for every episode. And if you're interested in that, go for it. If not, it's cool too. There will be clips on the YouTube channel, and the audio version's always going to be free. If you're not interested in any of the merch or anything, or you don't want to purchase anything, monetary support's not the only type of support you can give. You can also give support in the fashion of likes, subscribes, shares, and this last week I got a bunch of those. So I really do appreciate everybody supporting and doing all the good things. So I'll be back next week with another episode and another great person. Peace.